Hi, this is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. I'm the host of the Marching Roundtable podcast and the creator of MarchingArtsEducation.com. Thanks for being here at our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe so you can see exclusive live interviews, plus excerpts from podcasts, webinars, and interviews from live events. This is really the best way to find out what you might want to go back to our website and see an entire conversation. Thanks for being here. We hope you'll subscribe to our channel. Everyone, this is Tim, the Beast of the Marching Arts. I'm talking with Trae Blanco today. Trae, how are you?
Doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me today. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to this as well. So you have a long history with Bands of America and Music for All. You've done so many different things with them and so many different roles and ways. It's going to be interesting to hear about that today. I guess I would say, first off, just introduce yourself, who you are, and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Uh, Again, thanks for having me. My name is Trae Blanco. I am the Director of Bands beginning this fall at Butler University in Indianapolis in the School of Music. Prior to that, I've served on the faculty at Murray State University and the University of Southern Maine, both in the same capacity as Director of Bands, where I've conducted concert bands and taught courses in undergraduate music education and conducting. I'm also on the faculty in the summer at Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp, where I conduct a high school group each summer in session one. And this summer, we'll be joining them as the principal conductor for the Falcone Tuba Euphonium International Competition in August, which happens on the campus of Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp every summer. This is the first summer back in person after several summers away due to COVID. So I'm really looking forward to joining my colleagues there in the festival band for session 4. And we'll present a concert on Sunday afternoon, which will be broadcast live on Blue Lake Radio. And then on Monday, we will perform a brand new piece for tuba, for euphonium soloist rather, by Sebastian Quesada, and that will be part of the final round of the euphonium competition. So a lot going on this summer between the move, but that's sort of what I'm doing now. And like I said, I'm looking forward to this relocation to Indianapolis, which is happening ongoing. There's U-Haul boxes all around my house in every frame except for this one.
Well, thank you. In the middle of such a busy move and getting ready to go do your summer work, thank you for stopping to talk with me. As I mentioned, you have a long history with Bands of America and Music for All. So where does that history start for you?
Sure. I remember being in high school I grew up in New Mexico in a small town in northern New Mexico, Farmington. And I remember hearing from friends in the state and lived in larger areas or just different places. And they were talking about going to these BOA regional events. And I didn't really know what that meant. But I started bugging my band director about it and said, what about this? And at the time, and I think for many years, it was sort of like a really big, like a big band thing. Not a lot of small bands were doing it in the beginning. And now they've really sort of made a huge space for that, which I think is terrific. But way back then, our little band from New Mexico, about 90 people, I convinced my high school band director that we should try and do that. And so my senior year, we traveled to a BOA event. That was my first experience with Bands of America. And it was still BOA then, pre the incorporation of Music for All. And I was a performer, and it was at the Bank One Ballpark, which is where the Arizona Diamondbacks play. It was very interesting because it was in a baseball field. I remember it very vividly that part of the field was on dirt. It was out in right field, but the far left, I guess back side one was encroaching on first base, and so there was a little bit of dirt back there. And it was a really interesting experience, and yeah, I'll never forget it. It was pretty remarkable. Saw some incredible bands from that year. I remember seeing Rancho Cucamonga for the very first time, and I saw another band from Las Cruces, the Oñate High School Marching Band, and later taught in Las Cruces, which was kind of a small world too. So that was sort of my first experience as a performer, and I just remember thinking like, wow, this is incredible. And I had never seen so many students cheering on other performers in a way like I did at a BOA event. And we just had an amazing experience. I don't remember, I thought about this multiple times. I don't remember if I saw Dr. Tim there in the back. I know I had met him. He does a lot of on-field entrance for people. I had met Dr. Tim having attended the George Parks Drum Major Camp, which for many years had a long affiliation, Music for All, and the Summer Symposium when it was at Illinois State. I had been a camper at Mr. Parks' camp for, I think, 3 or 4 years at that time, going into my senior year, and I had met Dr. Tim, and so I've thought many times about whether I saw him there, but I don't remember if he was at that event. In any case, that was sort of the beginning of my my performer role and being involved with Bands of America.
I love that you shared that because I think a lot of band students have that sort of important moments in their band history that they remember from high school. And I love that you had that at a Bands of America event. So what happened next? I assume that you started teaching and that's when the next phase started?
Yeah, so I finished my high school career and continued on the staff in the summer with the George Parks Drum Major Academy. I did that for, gosh, like 12 years after. It was a terrific experience. But after I graduated, actually, from high school, that first summer I was out, I was on the staff, the college staff called the Impact Team for the Drum Major Academy. And going into that summer, I remember getting an email from Heidi Sarver and George, Mr. Parks, and them telling me, hey, this summer at all the regional events, we are going to be doing sort of auditions for the Bands of America Tournament of Roses Parade Band. They're putting together this band. It's an audition-based thing. The drum majors will be selected from people that audition and make the band. So step number one, you have to provide a really good, you have to do that well. There was one exception to that rule. The person who won the final march off at BOA Summer Symposium didn't have to make it. They just had to win the march off, which is a feat in and of itself. So in any case, so they said you got to audition and make the band, and then if you get in, you can audition the summer to be one of the drum majors. So I was set. So I mean, that just sounded like a pretty awesome opportunity. And even though I was going to be a freshman in college, that was sort of like the age out limit. You could audition as apply as a senior in high school, and then it was going to happen the next year. So that's kind of how that came together. So I went through that process. At the end of the Greeley camp, everyone went away, and I got a call from Scott McCormick, which I'll never forget. I might even still have that voicemail. I'm sort of notorious for saving really important voicemails in my Google Drive. So I got a phone call from Mr. McCormick, and Scott said, Trae, this is Scott McCormick calling from Bands of America. How are you? And I'm like, doing fine. Thanks for the phone call. I really didn't know what's happening. And he said, we're calling. I have on the phone with me. I don't remember who was all on the phone. I think Mr. Parks was on the phone. I just can't remember. He said, we're calling to let you know that we'd like to extend an invitation for you to be one of the 5 drum majors for the TOR BOA band. Is that something you still would like to do? And I mean, it was like, a no-brainer. Duh, of course. And so that experience was sort of my next, as a performer role, I was in a high school band that attended a regional event, but this was sort of my first big moment being a part of a BOA event that I felt like from the ground up. We spent a week together in Pasadena. I got to meet some incredible staff, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But that experience in itself was pretty, positively life-changing experience, right? I mean, that's the tagline. That was a game changer for me. I mean, I met some really remarkable people there. I went actually with 2 other people from my high school band, auditioned and went. Emily Crafton, a flute player, Nick Bayless, a clarinet player, and Nick and I were drum majors together in a high school band, and the 3 of us had a great time. Oh, and Casey O'Neill, there were 4 of us. I forgot. Casey's a percussionist. And all those people have gone on to do other stuff. The other 3 of them are not musicians, but Nick is like a graduate of Stanford and studying medical science and medical cures related to life-threatening diseases. Emily has gone on to have this amazing career as well, and Casey. I mean, they're just all doing really great things, and that experience certainly was the beginning of a really fantastic relationship with BOA for me, and I've been really lucky. I was saying just a little bit about some of the staff that week. I mean, every year the BOA has done this event. They assemble this the who's who of band directors and designers across the country. And that first year was no exception. I mean, they swung for the fences. And so while the band is directed by Mr. Parks, and I mean, I can't say enough about him. I mean, the DMA experience changed me forever. But his staff and, Heidi Sarver at the University of Delaware really just led this outstanding team. That's where I met Dean Westman, who's now at Avon, and at the time was at SFA. Matt Harloff at Avon. I met Greg Bim from Marian Catholic, which you can't have a BOA podcast event and not mention Greg Bim. I mean, right. Talk about the GOAT. I met him, and then I met Nan Moore, who taught at Louisville Male and has since retired. And now being in Kentucky the last 4 years, was able to reconnect with Nan. She's thrown a lot of work my way, invited me to do clinics with groups in Louisville. She's invited me to be a guest conductor. She's a member of the ABA, the American Bandmasters Association, and she has just treated me like such a great friend. And those relationships came from that event. I mean, that's where I met all these people. Dean, I'll never forget, after teaching high school band for 2 years, I called Dean and just sort of begged and pleaded at, how could I get you involved, designing, arrange something for my high school band? Like, we'd really like to go to the next level. And he said, well, this is what we could do. And I only work with people that I really trust and people that I've worked with over and over again. So if I do this, that means Matt's coming along. That means Daniel Wiles is coming along. That's all. And I said, okay, whatever it takes. And so the last 2 years of my teaching career, they were part of our design team and they did all that. I mean, all of that came from this, very first idea that BOA had. Let's do a Tournament of Roses parade band. And that experience certainly changed my career as a music educator, and now even is still shaping it today. I'm moving back to Indy, and Dean and Matt all teach there, and BOA headquarters is there, and so it's really been a full circle event to come back to Indy, and that Tournament of Roses parade certainly was the beginning of a lot of that.
I love that you're talking about those relationships that you were able to foster and build and start at these different events, because Trae, as you know, every year that goes by, I realize that the relationships that I have and that connections and networking, that's everything. Like, that's how your career is going to build. That's how your own reputation and your own work is going to build. And I love that you had that experience of meeting these really big time, important, very talented educators at that very first event.
Oh yeah, and I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, I stop only because of our time constraint, but I mean, you name the high school band program, and their band director was there. Yeah, I hate to get into names because then I'll leave someone really important out.
Don't even try to name them.
I mentioned Greg Bim, and I'll just say one more thing about it. So I my first year teaching, finished my undergrad, 4 years did my undergrad. I learned a lot. I was sure that I knew way more than I thought I did. And then I got to my first day of teaching and was like, I know nothing, as happens with, I think, everyone. I'm sure, yeah, you can attest to that as well. I can nod of your head. So I'll never forget that in the end of the first fall semester, I was preparing to pick music for our concert bands for Large Group Festival. And I knew of Greg's, just excellent history of concert bands. And so I wrote to him. I mean, I'm the man on the moon, right? I mean, and I just said, Dear Mr. Bim, my name is Trae Blanco. I'm not sure if you'll remember me. I was one of the drummers, blah, blah, blah. In any case, I'm teaching now. I'm trying to put together concert band program repertoire. What do you think about these things? I'd love any of your input. And then I also told him a little bit about the band. And he wrote me back one of the most thoughtful emails ever. Still have it, because it was really important to me at the time. And he told me a lot of really good things suggested a lot of repertoire based on the strengths that I said. And he led me to the water to not play a couple of things that I really thought I wanted to play in my first year of teaching, and I will forever be grateful for him for that, of helping me understand, like, your first year teaching with your first band at Concert Band Festival, I don't care how good they are, don't play Russian Christmas music, Trae. Just don't do it. And I thought, well, I guess, okay, I guess I can put that on the shelf for another year. And boy, am I glad. I'm forever grateful. So, these top-notch music educators, I mean, they obviously have had amazing careers of their own, but I guarantee that, I am not the first person to ever cold email Greg Bim and ask him those things. And he spent the time to respond, and just was so nice about that. And I've run into him a few times over the years at Midwest, and I'll always say, hey, I just saw him at the Illinois Music Educators convention this past year and was able to visit with him a little bit. Just to say, hi, thank you. I heard your band again recently. Holy cow, I can't believe you do all that drill writing and music arranging yourself. Wow. So yeah, just the stories about that gang sort of goes on and on and on. They're just wonderful people.
Yeah. Well, Greg Bim is a wonderful example of really how our whole activity is and our field is that it's full of really smart, talented, very, very accomplished, sort of famous people who are very happy to help anyone, to share what they know, to stop and help anyone at any point in their career to do better. I know that happens at the Summer Symposium. It happens at all kinds of different events that Bands of American Music for All are doing, and all kinds of organizations are doing. So I love that you mentioned that, because when I started the podcast with some friends 11 years ago, we were sort of like, I wonder if anybody will talk to us, and will everybody be willing to share what they know? And what we found out is that everybody's willing to talk to us, and everybody's willing to say everything they can to help somebody else. I can't tell you, Trae, how many times somebody said to me, man, I'm happy to tell anybody anything that'll help them not make all those mistakes I made. when I
Yeah.
was first starting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And so, yeah, I was really fortunate that first year had really that first TOR experience. And I know for BOA that was no small feat. I mean, they were assembling a band from all across the country, and for the very first time, and sort of completely into the unknown, it rained the whole week. I mean, it was like a flooded out experience. And all for that. And everyone I know, I couldn't tell you how many Facebook friends came from that event and who I have not seen since then. But certainly, when their names come across for birthdays, or they'll send a message, or seems like every year in January, people are sharing pictures from that event, like, holy cow, can you believe it's been X number of years? Can you believe it's been X number of years? And yeah, I mean, of the 5 drum majors, um, I kept in touch with 3 of the others. Tara is a nurse in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. She's just a terrific nurse. Robert moved back to the Netherlands. He's a fluent Dutch language speaker, and his family is from there, and is doing just some incredible work in the business field. And Kyle is serving in the United States Air Force, and has been doing so for many years. I'm not sure exactly how many after that event that he enlisted, but he finished his undergrad and did that. And so, I mean, these people went on to do some really cool things, and just happy to be able to sort of watch adjacently through what keeps us connected online. So, really cool event.
That's been a long time ago, and it was a really important event for you and for so many of, I'm sure, for all the students that were there. Other than the rain, what is the main thing you remember from that first experience of heading down the parade route? Like, tell me about that experience. What's the thing that you remember the most?
Yeah. There are 2 things that stick out. One's day of, and one was prior. So, the Tournament of Roses parade is infinitely known across the band director community about the famous turn, right? Because it's not a 90-degree turn, it's bigger than that. So, everyone practices the turn forever so that when you get this cool overhead shot, your band doesn't look like, I don't know, a disaster down there. So we arrived, I couldn't tell you what day we arrived on, but I know we were there for about a week. And I think it was the second day. We had been doing some practice in the morning, and the afternoon, the band was set to go to tour a float facility, an indoor refrigerated area where they're assembling all these floats and all this stuff. And I think it was Robert, one of the other drum majors. Anyways, the band's getting ready to go, and George tells me, he says, hey, I want you and Robert to come with me. We're going to go check the turn. I don't know what that means, but all right. So I don't remember who's driving. Scott McCormick's in the front, Heidi, Sarver, George, maybe a couple other staff. And I remember I'm in the very back, like, these 15-passenger vans, like the last seat. I might as well be out the back door. Anyways, we drive down to the turn, Orange Avenue, I think is what it's called, whatever this turn is. And George, and for anybody that knows Mr. Parks, I mean, he just like, when his mind was set on something, it was set. And so we see the turn, and he asks us to pull over. He pulls over, and he gets out. At this point, I've been on the drum major staff, DMA Academy staff with Mr. Parks. I've been there for like maybe 5 summers, 4 as a camper and 1 as a staff member. And he gets out. And Heidi, I'm sure, in her infinite wisdom, knowing him, she knows that he's about to walk the turn. Like, he's going to check the steps to make sure it's correct, what he thinks. And she says, Trae, get out. Trae, get out with him. And I'm like, so I go out the back, I just leap over, and they let me out. I get out the back, and we're standing, and he presses the crosswalk, and I'm like, this is not happening. This is not happening. And sure enough, ding. Now, a crosswalk is for one-way traffic. It is not for 110-degree stepping turn. And the thing dings, and he steps out, and he's checking the turn. He's doing the steps. And I'm just, okay, so I just step out with him. I mean, Mr. Parks is probably 5'6". I'm not sure exactly, but that moment, just walking through this intersection of like, this is it. This is where it all ends. People are looking at flowers, and I am over here playing human barricade. That experience was just, I'll never forget that. My parents went to see it. They came out as well, and they said, hey, how was your float tour? And I was like, I didn't go. They're like, oh, what happened? I said, well, you won't believe the story I have for you. And so that was that was the beginning of probably 6 or 7 more summers of working on staff with Mr. Parks in the DMA Academy. And that was sort of just a really great moment that I get to share with him. And I think Robert was with us. although I don't remember. There was so much going on. That was sort of just a wild moment. Um, Another, you were asking about the day of, like, what do I remember? We had to do the Macy's parade. You get to do a check, like you get to do like a 3 in the morning walkthrough. It's awful, right?
Right.
Um, the Rose Bowl parade is not. There's no practice route. You get there. So I remember our alarms going off at like awful 3 something horrible in the morning, and we had to be on the bus, and we got like some snack lunches. And I just remember being like still kind of foggy, not like there wasn't a ton of energy in that process because everyone was just so tired, a bunch of high school and students ready to just go back to bed. But when we got to the event, we got to, pull uniform out, get it on, and get off the bus. And it was still about dark 30. And I remember waiting on this off ramp like you do, right? I mean, it's almost essentially just get off the interstate and there's off ramps that are shut down. And the band started lining up, and we were trying to stay warm, and we had on black plastic trash bags because it was like kind of insulated, kind of like you would if you were doing a weight loss or like, trying to warm. So we're wearing these, and then I remember when it was time, the staff and the drum majors just started walking the ends of the lines and taking bags from people. And then it was like walk around a corner, step the ends, go. And it was sort of nonstop from there. I mean, that is a long parade. For anybody that's done that parade, they know that it is lengthy. And so we had done a lot of practice for that. But once we stepped off, there was little to no stopping time. Just before the turn, a float got stuck. So we got stuck at the turn for a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it was making that turn is something else. And it was really special for me too. Like I said, my parents came out, and, like many band kids, my parents came to everything. My mom was involved with everything. My dad helped in every parade, and my sister was always there, just sort of cheering on. And so my parents drove out to California from New Mexico and spent a few days there. And a really good friend of ours came out. So when we made the turn, and there's huge grandstands on the right, that was really cool. I was excited to see that and all the cameras and stuff. But just past the first big grandstands on the left, I knew where my parents were. And so it was really special to see them and to know that they were there and to have that experience with them. And they've been, and like I said, they've been at pretty much everything I've done over the years like that. And so that experience, I know for a lot of students that were in the parade as well, whose parents were there, they kind of all sat in the same sort of area. You were able to buy tickets with BOA for this sort of like band family area. And so that turning the corner was really special. And I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's nothing like seeing people's tents, camping tents. It's public sidewalk, so people will camp out overnight, just anywhere they can find space, and they just wake up in the morning and come out, and there they are. And so making those sorts of that turn and seeing all those people and that excitement, and just for a parade, I mean, it sounds like just a parade, but it certainly was a whole lot more, and the atmosphere certainly spoke for itself.
You mentioned that your parents were there and how supportive they were to you as a band student through all the different things you did. And I have to tell you, my parents were the same way. And I didn't really, until I became a band director, I didn't realize that wasn't the case for every student.
Yep.
Once I became a director, I realized, okay, wow, there are a lot of parents that don't show up for concerts and aren't volunteering and helping out with these things. And so if you're listening to this and you are one of those band parents that is there showing up for your student, volunteering, showing up to performances, my hat's off to you. You are great. And as Trae just mentioned, that really mattered to him, and it really made a big impact on your experience and on them being there supporting you. So let's all continue to support our students in every way we possibly can as they go through their band career.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. And so what happens next? I'm assuming you become an educator, and is that where your next BOA thing happens?
Yeah, I started teaching. I went to college, did my undergrad. I worked with a really great band, student taught with them, the Mayfield High School Band in New Mexico, Neil Swap, and Sarah Reed and Kristen. They just developed a really fantastic band program in southern New Mexico, and Neil has known Cam for a long, long time. And so that was sort of my first connection. I mean, I had met Cam through that experience there, but anyone who's been involved with BOA for any period of time, 1 month or 15 years, that the name Cam has sort of essentially tied with the franchise. So Neil introduced me to Cam through that experience, and I went with him and his band to several BOA events. It was pretty great. I'll never forget the BOA had an event in Flagstaff, Arizona for a couple years. It went away and now it's back. Dr. Steve Meyer, who's the director of bands there, also BOA judge, just a terrific human. But they brought that event back. But I'll never forget that I was student teaching and we went to that event. And the outdoor, the warm-up area is in Flagstaff, Arizona, is of course the stadium. Warm-up area is outdoor and the performance is indoor. They have an indoor stadium because it's Flagstaff and it's snowing by October. And this event was late October, and I just remember it being unbelievably freezing outside and warm up, and then going inside and be like, well, if we tuned 30 cents flat, hopefully everybody's pitch comes up together and it'll all match everything. But that was sort of, a teaching experience, attending events. Yeah, I mean, it was just wild. While I was teaching in New Mexico, my last year, BOA brought an event to El Paso, Texas, which is pretty cool. Sort of a West Texas regional. That was a really great event. Our students learned a lot. It was our first real BOA event. Many groups in southern New Mexico travel either to the Arizona regional, or there was a regional in St. George, Utah for a while. And the first few years I was teaching, that just wasn't really in our books. But when the event came just down the street to West Texas, that was a really awesome event to be involved with and take our students to. And again, for them to see sort of a lot of the same bands in our area, but to get different type of feedback, different type of educational feedback and opportunities. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that first year that event came to West Texas, it was sort of one of these like a clinic event. So we performed on Saturday. I don't remember. I think we performed on a Friday. It was a Friday event, and then Saturday morning you could book a clinic session. So it was just down the road, 45 minutes. And so we had our group come back, and we were able to sit in and listen to a few designers and judges talk about, like, I really like this, but it doesn't seem like it's completely finished yet. Or I like this idea, run with that more. Or I like the way you play here. What if you focus that same sort of playing there? And that was really great for students. I mean, as you know, being a teacher, I can say the same thing to students 500 times, 500 days in a row, and you could come in on the 501st day and say it one more time the exact same way, and magically, it's solved. And that's been my experience sort of, throughout my teaching career, and I think anyone in the field would say the same. So having that opportunity for students to hear from, world-class teachers and designers and educators was really a big leap forward for us in that learning process.
That's great. So are there any other connections that you have with Music for All Our Bands of America that you want to mention as we're talking?
I was just thinking about when I sent you an email just to sort of outline and stuff. When I was at IU doing my master's degree, the drumline there they invite a college drumline in to play for finals retreat usually every year. And my first or second year at IU, the IU drumline was invited, and the drumline instructor wasn't able to go. I feel like he had like a family wedding or something going on. And so the director of bands there, athletic bands, Dave Woodley at the time, asked me if I'd be willing to go up just so that they had some sort of contact person in the space. He said, I know you've been up and you've been involved with BOA. I think it was my second year, because the first year I was there, I went to Grand Nats and sat in the booth and hung out in up in the BOA area, and just like freaked out because everyone there was there. It was like, oh my gosh, that's Dean Westman. Oh my gosh, that's Greg Bim. Oh my gosh, that's, all these people that would walk by and just like had a panic attack about it. And so that second year I got to go with them, and that was actually one of those years was the first time that I ever saw Carmel perform, Carmel Marching Band perform. And at the time, I didn't know much about them. I just knew the name of Richard Salcedo, of course, and then I knew Mike Pote's name. And then years later, here now coming to Murray State in 2018. Yeah, 2018 when I came to Murray State, I got connected to Mike Pope. Mike's a Murray State grad, super accomplished teacher and educator and clinician. And I met Mike and was introduced to him through some mutual colleagues and friends here. And he's just been, an incredible mentor in the last several years. And so getting to see his band, almost 10 years ago, and I didn't know at the time that relationship would develop, but I'm really looking forward to being in Indy and being near him and his group, and all the other groups in Indianapolis, with such just a rich history of band and music making, and just my last trip up, a house hunting trip to Indianapolis, was able to have dinner with Mike and talk about all things band and life. And him and I are both sort of foodies, and we like to cook, so we sort of nerd out about. We'll be nearby and we talking about how we're making food. I mean, we had a conversation about like salting eggplant and putting it on wax paper. I mean, it gets kind of ridiculous. But in any case, BOA has been really just sort of a catalyst in so many incredible people that I have met and relationships that I've been able to build. And I didn't know that in the must have been the summer of 2000. Yeah, I was going to be a freshman, summer of 99. I was going to be a freshman in high school, and one of the drum majors at my high school had a family emergency or a wedding. Something came up, and they weren't able to go to the George Parks Drum Major Academy. And so the spot opened up, and my high school band director said, "Hey, you strike me as someone who's going to be interested in being a leader one day, and we have this open spot, and it's paid for, and it's a male dorming assignment. We can change the name. Would you consider going?" And that summer of 99, meeting George was sort of my introduction to what it is that Bands of America was and could offer. And so from there to attending Summer Symposium as a swag, and then all the experiences that we've talked about up until now have certainly been, and now being at Butler, which hosts the National Concert Band Festival in our concert halls. I mean, that's sort of, it feels a little bit full circle. If there's more involved in the circle, I am unprepared for it, because this seems like sort of the icing on the cake. But I'm sort of just along for the ride and open to possibilities at this point.
Well, it's great to talk to you about this, because this has been Music for All, and Bands of America has been such an important part of your life, your development as a musician, a performer, an educator. We talked about all those connections that you made through it. So I know that you will continue that, and there's no reason that this will grow in ways you can't even imagine.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we're really excited about the move and looking forward to what that means.
Well, good luck with everything. Thank you for taking time to talk to me, and thank you for sharing these very personal stories of what this has all meant to you.
Well, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it, and I look forward to collaborating and seeing more of you as we sort of encounter each other in Indianapolis very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Marching Arts Education is the home of the Marching Roundtable podcast. We give you access to the top marching arts professionals through live webinars, podcasts, videos, interviews, and online coursework. With over 1,000 podcasts and hundreds of webinars and videos, there are hours of great professional development for you and your staff. Sign up for a membership to Marching Arts Education to get complete access to all webinars, videos, and podcasts, plus discounts on coursework. Many directors are using professional development funds through their school or boosters to make these resources available to their staff. Imagine what you could do with so many great new ideas from the top professionals in our activity. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter to find out about the latest podcasts, webinars, and new content. Find all of this and sign up at marchingartseducation.com.